Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Temple, your host, and on today's 183rd episode of The Thriller Zone, we've a special treat. If you're a fan of thriller and crime fiction, then you've no doubt heard of The Real Book Spy. Well, today we sit down with Ryan Steck to discuss his latest thriller, Out for Blood. This latest entry picks up where the last Matthew read thriller left off, with one exception. Or maybe two. Red's danger is deeper, and the read is not only longer, but richer in scope. Yep, it's a good one. You'll also hear Ryan and I discuss a few things about New York Times bestselling author Jack Carr. We discuss in depth the process of writing substantial thrillers. We share Jack Carr's stories. We also learn about Ryan's home life, which involves no less than 11 mouths to feed. And before the end of the show, we discuss Jack Carr. We cover a bit of Thrillerfest. We hear about how Ryan got his start as the Real Book Spy, and we get inside scoop on Jack Carr. See a theme here? All in all, it's a fully packed hour of all things thriller fiction. So let's get into the Thriller Zone with Real Book Spy Ryan Steck. All right, look, we're ready to go because it doesn't get any better looking than you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Likewise. It gets no better sounding than you. Well, and if I had your voice, I'd be doing my own audiobooks.
Can I just say, I finally get to meet the Real Book Spy?
Thank you. Yeah, well, likewise, man. I finally get to meet the real Thriller Zone.
It is kind of crazy how we have been circling one another's universe for 2 years-ish. I mean, this show will be 3 in June, so...
Happens quick, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, son.
Yeah, the Book Spy's turning 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me slide this little bad boy up.
Looks good. Look, I got the hardcover with the tangerine spine that no one told me about until I opened it. And it came and I was like, I had no idea the spine was going to be orange.
And is there a reason behind that?
Yeah, I mean, they always do like a really striking on the spine just so it jumps out at you. But normally they match the lettering. And the font color was the same as my last book. I guess I just assumed they'd have the same spine color, but they were like, nah, we went with tangerine. Because, by the way, someone told me that because I didn't call it orange. I called it tangerine, right? So I was coached for sure. Like, yeah, did you like the tangerine? I was like, oh, you mean the orange? Yeah, it looked good. I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan, anybody can say orange.
Yeah.
But just say tangerine.
Yeah, man. It's interesting. I would have wrote tangerine, but talking, I would have called it orange. And I think that proves Kyle Mills once said, no one pays an author or a writer to talk. They pay us to write. There's a reason. And every interview I do, I start thinking he's right, man. He's definitely right.
Well, we are going to get to Out for Blood very shortly. Oh, by the way, quick note. His guy's name is Pim. I can't remember how to say his last name. He did your animated book trailer.
He did.
In fact, Ryan, let's take a look at it right now, and I'm going to add voiceover just for the funsies of it, okay?
Thank you.
Hey, and beat the EQ. From Ryan Steck, The Real Book Spy, comes another riveting thriller in the Matthew Red series. When his enemies start an avalanche of revenge he won't be able to outrun, the elite soldiers lures all of them into the frigid Montana mountains, hoping to draw them out. They won't stop until they kill everyone he loves over his dead body. Brad Thorse is packed with nonstop action. Jack Carr says reaffirms Ryan Steck's prowess in the thriller genre. This year, the snow will be stained red. Ryan Steck, Out for Blood, from Tyndall. Solid.
Looks good, didn't it?
Wow.
Hey, shout out to Pim because I'm probably the worst client he's ever worked with. I don't know what I want. I just know what I don't like. I'm not helpful at all. So someone could be like, how about we do this? And I'm like, I don't really like that. Okay, Ryan, what do you like? And they're very hands-on and they're really supportive of like collaborating. I have no clue. It's like, I will tell you, man, my covers, I've been really blessed. I have 3 great covers. I think they're great.
Yeah.
But I have zero to do with that. The second one, the cover that you see right now of Lethal Range is the way it came in. And I had all these ideas to make it better. And I kept asking for these changes. Every single one made it progressively worse to the point where I was like, let's just go back to the very first one. And so we did. That's the one that published. So with the trailer, I'm no help. I would say like, hey, what if, instead of that, you did this, and this, and they do it and I wouldn't like it. And so I'd be like, okay, how about none of that? And instead, let's try. And so finally, they just were like, what do you think if we just do this? And I was like, just send it to me. And it looked great. And so they didn't need my input at all.
You know, it's a funny thing. I probably am what you would call a classic control freak because there's this. I got a real good idea of exactly what I want, and I got this idea and about the color and the font. And I have learned, Ryan, over the years, shut up, David, and just go, hey, artist, you're the master. Go for it. Because I have found that the more you toy with it, and you just kind of personified that in your comment, the more you toy with it, the more you send it off the rails.
Yeah, I really have learned just stick to the writing of the books and then let everybody, like the art department was hired to work in the art department for a reason, you know? Yeah.
Publicists do publicity. Publishers do publishing.
Yep.
Snipers do shooting, and writers should just write.
We should just write and just leave it at that. And but I mean, it is funny. Like, you know, I talk, you know, I all the same writer friends that you do, but like talk to Jack Carr, and he writes all of his own flap copy. So you go to Amazon, you type in one of his books, the product details that like pop up, he writes those. And I always like, oh, okay. And I know which authors don't, but now it bothers me because I don't write mine. So with Out for Blood, I wrote what I thought would be the flap copy. I never told my publisher. And so they sent me, they're like, here you go. There's the product description. And I was going to come back and go, oh, I wrote a product description, and theirs was so much better than mine that I just never said anything. And I just rolled with it.
Lesson learned. Before we get into the deeper things, I just want to know, is it true that Ben Coase called you the godfather of the thriller genre?
Yeah, he did. That was a good one.
That's huge, dude.
Also, you know, I came from a sports world. He called me the Adam Schefter of the thriller world, and I liked that one better, to be honest with you. But yeah, he did. Shout out Ben Coase for that one.
Yeah. Now that makes sense because you're, as you know, I did radio for 25 years.
Yeah.
You have a cadence and you hit the mic a certain way. You got a cadence and a delivery because I was watching you on Twitch recently, which I don't know a thing about. And
I don't either.
I'm like, that guy should be on the radio, man. He should be like, you know what? You're going to be perfect for it. And I don't mean this in a diminishing way. You're the perfect sidekick to a morning show, which is what I did for 25 years.
Yeah,
because you're the guy that I could always look to and go, and I'm not one of those egocentric, hungry guys that I got to have all the limelight. But if I know your strength, I'm going to go, Ryan, what do you think about that? Boom. Step away, let you do your magic, you know?
It's a mistake, man. I have a lot of thoughts. It drives my wife nuts. Someone asks my take on something, we're gonna have to sit down and order lunch, probably. But yeah, I mean that'd be fun. Twitch. I don't know anything about Twitch. I don't know a thing about it. My agent had the idea a few years ago. He represents this guy named Tulam, who's a character in Call of Duty. I didn't even know they had real people in that video game. And I won't name names, though I wish I could, but like, all my favorite authors, with the exception of maybe a few, play Call of Duty. Okay, that's a real thing, including some of these tier 1 special forces guys. All right, I was playing, and my agent goes, you know, you ever heard of Twitch? Tulam, you know, is in Call of Duty, and they have this platform. It's like $1 billion, and I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, what? You watch people play video games? Like people pay money for that? I would never. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I had all these cousins, and I could never play Nintendo because they would hog it, and I had to watch, and that was not fun. I would never have paid to watch. I was like mad. But when I saw it was $1 billion a year industry, I was like, well, someone's watching and paying for that. And so, I went into it very foolishly, man. Like, David, I knew nothing. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to start streaming. I did not know you need like a super PC for that. This is a true story. I told my wife I was going to do it, and she was very supportive. I didn't know I had to build 2 computers. I couldn't even build a computer. So that meant hire someone to get all the best stuff. It was $25,000. And my wife was like, ooh, that better be a tax write-off. So we got into it, and then my daughter does it with me. And that's why it's fun for me is my oldest is now an adult, and she really holds her own. And I think she just likes it because she can get on and like roast me in front of everybody, you know, and show our relationship. So we have a lot of fun with that.
25 large to get in. I had no idea.
Yeah, it was wild. You should see my office now. I have that I'm mirrored, so I don't even know where to point. That AC unit is because I have 2 custom built PCs just cranking heat in here. It's horrible.
I think I saw the Twitch with you, your daughter, and Jack Carr.
Yeah.
She smoked, dude. She you said hold your own. She did exactly that.
She does. Yeah, she keeps me on my toes. I think she lives. This is revenge for her. My oldest her name's Brent. And I have a different parenting style. I believe in laughter. And, my daughter is now a manager at a bell tire store. And she works with a lot of guys, and they always like, I'll come in and they're like, you ruined her, Mr. Steck. We try to roast her and joke with her all the time, and we could never get her because she said her whole childhood was that. And it's true like that. I really believe with laughing with the kids, and we pick on each other. It's all out of love, right? Like,
sure.
you can get away with that with the ones that you love. Someone else comes in and makes a joke. It's not funny anymore, right? Yeah. Mama Bear, Daddy Bear are going to be all over them. But with my daughter, I was like, man, bullying will never be a thing because I'm the one that teases them the hardest. Like, they're ready for the real world now. So now that the cameras are on her, I think Bryn enjoys getting in front of the camera and making fun of me publicly. And so I just kind of let her do her thing, and we have fun with it.
It flat out works. Now, we're going to get to Out for Blood in a second, but I want to do this. It's dropping June 4th, by the way, but I want to talk to you because we've been circling, as I said, each other's universe for a while. And I want to start with, because I don't know this and I haven't found the answer anywhere, so I thought I'll ask the guy who did it, and that is the when and the why did you launch The Real Book Spy?
Okay, so there's two answers, right? Okay. So I'm going to give you the answer, then I'm going to give you the honest answer.
Okay.
So the first was that there was no one-stop shop for all things thriller. And you look at like literary awards every year, dude, I've never even heard of those books ever. Same thing. I would like my wife will watch the Oscars. I've never heard of a single movie that ever wins Best Picture ever. I didn't even know they were made. But I go to every billion-dollar movie, right? Fast and the Furious, Avengers. I like those things. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking like, why it's like the same thing in the movie world. All these movies that never made money that no one's ever heard of win this Best Picture. It's like, how? But the movies that like the rest of us casually go to and love never win anything. And so it's very similar in the book world, right? You never see Brad Thor win Book of the Year, and he should. And he should. You just don't see it.
No.
Unless it's like a thriller award. And so that bothered me. And I was transitioning from sports writing, and I was doing editing, and I was friends with a lot of these authors. And I thought, why is there no one-stop shop for all things thriller? And a mentor of mine and dear friend, Ted Bell, the late Ted Bell, was a friend of your show as well. He was the one that was like, buddy, why don't you build it and we'll all come follow you. And then the other answer is this. Like, I was writing reviews for other people and it sucked. Like, I hated it. Like, I really hated it. It turns out I don't work well with a boss, like, at all. And I don't like being told what I had to review and when it had to come out. I just wanted to do it kind of my way. And I felt like as a fan, I could bring that to the table, right? And I think the guy that we've seen really nail that is Jack Carr.
Yeah.
Because in my time as a book spy, no one has broken out like him. It's probably, and I say this all the time, it's probably the closest to like what it would have been like to cover Vince Flynn or Brad Thor in the early 2000s.
Absolutely.
And so you're seeing Jack come out, and the thing I love is he's a fan first and foremost. He always talks about that. He loves other books, other authors. He's always propping everybody up. And so I came at it from sort of that standpoint, if it makes sense. I wanted to be a fan and help people like me find more books that they would enjoy.
Yeah. So much to unwrap there. There are a couple of things. First of all, I've never seen anybody jump out of the gate like him. I met him in 19 at Thrillerfest, and I think it was the year before or maybe two prior that he had just come out, and I've watched him in that short amount of time, and I'm like, Jack, you're blowing my socks off. I mean, everything he does, and he's a marketing machine. And now, last time I talked to him, he said I had to hire a CEO of marketing or something to just handle everything that's going on. Just a crazy world he's got.
And you know they're busy. Yeah, he has a new chief of staff, I think, and they're super busy.
That's it.
Because Jack he's rolling, man. I was one of the first people to read the Terminal List way before anyone knew about it. And so I got to talk to him before he was the Jack Carr.
Right.
And he's the same exact dude. Like, that's what's so cool is he's not changed at all. I will tell you something funny. So I got the Terminal List and I got connected with Jack. And at the time I was writing and nobody knew it. And I was early drafts of Fields of Fire. And at the time I wanted my hero to have a unique weapon. And so I have Matthew Red. And I asked Jack, I said, hey, I want my hero. He carries like this tomahawk he picks up. What do you think would be like a good model, brand, this and that. And he was like, probably the one that my character uses. You might want to read in my book. So I did. It was just like, oh, this sucks. I got to rewrite. So I took it out. So the next year I'm talking to him and he goes, hey, what's your book about? And I was like, dude, no one's doing anything like this. It's this special ops guy. He's in Montana. And I give him the whole pitch. And he's like, sounds really cool. And I'm like, so what's your new book about? And he's like, you're not going to believe it, but James Reese is in Montana. And I was like, nah, for real? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude, Jack Carr is him and Taylor Moore. I don't know if you've had Taylor on.
Oh, yeah.
So we share an agent, and every time I come up with a good title, my publisher's psyched, and then John Talbot, our agent, is like, you probably can't use it. Taylor has that. So Lethal Range, I wanted to be Downrange, and he rolled out Downrange. And then just recently, I was going to go with the title Cold Trailing, and he's got Cold Trail. I was going to go with Firestorm. He had Firestorm. So I called Taylor one day. Our agent was like, you guys should talk. You write some similar type things. Yeah. I had no idea how similar our books were. And we're talking on the phone one day, and I'm like, first of all, I hate you because you take every title from me. And he had no clue at all. So he was laughing, and we had this fun, and he's a good friend now. But we're going back and forth. He's like, what's your book's about? And I'm like, it's about this former special ops guy who goes home to Montana, working his cattle ranch. He's like, oh, that's pretty similar to what I do. But don't worry, my stuff's real different. Like, my guy settles down and has a family. And I was like, dude, we got to read each other's books. Like, that sounds a lot like mine. And so I really think Red and Garrett Cole are just long lost relatives.
So this begs the question, how cool would it be? And Taylor's such a swell guy. Can you imagine you two getting together and co-writing and having your universes either co-write, that's idea A, or your universes collide in that you cross-pollinate your characters into each other's story?
It would be interesting. I've sort of mentioned to him, I think he's doing a Matthew Red Easter egg in one of his new books. And I definitely, my book next year that I still don't have a title for because Taylor took it.
I was going to say.
I still don't have one. I submitted a few ideas to the publisher and they're working on approving one. I still don't have one because of Taylor, but I definitely put an Easter egg, a Garrett Cole Easter egg. It would be fun, man. It for sure would.
Oh, you guys would be a great yin and yang on the microphones. That's for sure. Well, there's a couple of things that has sprung up in my mind as I'm reading about you and your work. And of course, we're still going to get to Out for Blood. I just want to dive a little bit more. And that is, having grown up in a religious home, I think you have too. I know you're a faith-based guy. I'm well aware of Tyndale House because I grew up. My dad was a preacher, so I saw Tyndale House all around the house constantly, and its connection to faith-based. But here's my question: do you have a specific faith-based point of view as you write, which is different than a Christian story? We'll use the word Christian in air quotes. Is a Christian story. There's not going to be any foul language. There's not going to be no sleeping. Violence is minimal. Blah blah blah.
Yep.
I learned this having done that film, Chasing Grace. So my question is there a specific faith-based point of view that you kind of keep in the back of your mind as you travel down the road with Matt?
A little. The big thing for me is I don't write. I don't want to write. Honestly, I don't. I don't want to write Christian thrillers.
Yeah.
I want to write thrillers. Yes, I was brought up in a Christian home. My faith is important to me, and it is. And the way we raised our children here, my wife and I, we have 6 kids. It's really central to our home. However, I'm not someone to preach at anybody or think I'm better. I don't at all. If someone became a believer tomorrow, they're probably already a better Christian than me, man. Like I don't think I'm better than anybody. So I never wanted to write books like that. But one thing that I kept just kind of laughing at was the idea that Matthew Red, his father-in-law, is a preacher. And I couldn't get over what it would be like to sit in church on Sunday and hear things like thou shalt not kill. And then on Tuesday, have to go kill a ton of bikers. If they're trying to hurt your family. Like, it was something I felt like I wanted to explore. But also, I think every believer, every religious person has a very different path and maturing process. You're not the same person you were day 1 that you are day 100 or day 1,000. And so I wanted to show what might that look like. And one of the things that, you start talking to veterans and service guys, a lot of them are believers. Mm-hmm. And I really found that as a source of inspiration with Matthew Red, with my series. I'll never forget, I don't know that he said it publicly, so I won't name him, but he's another thriller author with a military background who spoke very candidly to me about like, what is it like to go into combat? And he was like, I just prayed the whole time. And I thought, oh man, that's really interesting. I probably would have been too scared to even do that. Like, I don't even think I would have had a thought, like, and that's where they talk about you rely on your training. And I thought, okay, there's a market, I wouldn't say that the faith elements are a central theme to the books. Mm-hmm. And I'll never be someone that's preachy. I think there's authors that do that really, really well. And I wouldn't call it preachy, but like Joel Rosenberg is the standard, and I still don't think he writes Christian thrillers. I think he writes thrillers. He's got a little bit more of a message than me. In the back of my mind, I know where Red is heading, but far more than, where he's at from a religious standpoint. I kind of know where he's at just as a person. Cause to me, he lives inside my head, right? Matthew, right. People like, I get asked all the time, are you Matthew Red? And I'm like, my wife probably wishes I looked more like him than I do. But if I were 6'3.5" and 265 pounds of pure muscle with a nice tan working the ranch, yeah, I mean, I probably would say more things that he does because I could get away with it, right? I see him, the end game with Red. I know where I want him to be as an adult. Not where I don't even say where I want him to be. It's like I kind of just see where he's at later in life, and it's my job to show how he gets there. And so I'm answering that question a little vague just because there's a lot that happens in this book. And then in the next one that comes out next summer, untitled, thanks, Taylor. And you'll see some of that growth. That's what I would call that. A lot of character development and growth. But,
gotcha.
I haven't really gone too deep at all in the religious elements just yet.
Okay. Yeah, it made me think about something. How funny is it that so many of our heroes in these books, military thrillers specifically, end up looking somewhat like, is it Alan Richardson, the new Jack Reacher?
Yeah.
Right. That because what you just described is about what he is and looks like. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yep. Since I am relative noob to the Ryan Steck fan club, I'm wondering if there's something that you kind of, since you just referenced faith, is there something you'd like your readers to kind of walk away with, some kind of an inspiration or a feeling or a message, or is it just flat out pure entertainment?
So my number one goal is to entertain you. Yeah. Definitely I want to entertain the reader. But the hidden message I think for me is really simple. Blood makes you relatives. You choose your family.
Yes.
That's important to me. My first 3 kids are adopted. I was told I couldn't have kids or probably would not have children. Boy, that was a lie. My first 3 are adopted, and then my wife and we had 3 more. And so now I have 6 kids. So, but what I would tell you is if you watch my streams on Twitch with my oldest, she's more like me than any of my other kids, which makes no sense because she doesn't have any of my DNA. Yeah. And she's the most like me. And that's wild to me. Matthew Red's world is a fictionalized version of mine. His best friend in his books is a guy named Mikey Durhammer. That's my best friend. He lives like 200 steps that way. Okay. Yeah. Like seriously, my house looks at his house. That's funny. Red gets a canine companion at the end of book 2. And it was very prevalent in this book and Out for Blood, Rubble, his Rottweiler. And I'm shocked you haven't heard him yet in this interview. Rubble is my real life Rottweiler. He's a 130-pound Rottie that I just take what's real to me and fictionalize. And I really, I have relatives I've not seen in forever that I have relatives, I have cousins I've not seen in my whole adult life, but I have people that I love that I consider family that aren't blood. And when you look at Red's world, that's very much true. And that's sort of a message that I believe in. And if there's anything I've preached at all, that's probably it.
By the way, I saw your Rod in, I think it was Instagram when he was a puppy. And so he's now a $130.
He's a big boy. Yeah. Well, and I got suckered. Okay. So here's the deal, David. Okay. So everyone wants my dog because he's like, he truly is. I've had dogs my whole life and I thought I loved dogs. It turns out I never did. I loved Rubble. It's so different. I never taught him anything and yet he knows everything. He's completely obedient. I have no idea how. People ask me all the time for tips on training dogs. I have no clue whatsoever. He just picked it up and minds, obeys, very loyal to me. He's so loyal to me that if people start hugging me, he'll break it up. He's not like a big fan of even my wife or my kids hugging on me for too long. And so Rubble is kind of like the perfect pet for me, but also for Red. But what happened is now my kids all want one. So I just got suckered into getting 2 puppies. So we have 2 additional Rottweilers. That's a whole new way of life for us.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I sadly I lost my dog. We had to let him go a couple of years back, and I thought I thought there's nothing. I've now lost both parents, and in some ways, losing my dog felt, I'm not going to say worse, but completely different, but bad. And I thought Tammy, my wife, went to shopping the other day and saw one of those little things where they put the pups out for adoption. And I said, I'm assuming you just stopped and looked. And she goes, oh, yeah, I didn't bring one home, did I? I'm like, yeah, but how close did you get? Closer than I probably needed to. So, yeah.
Yeah, my wife did it. So we had to put we had an 11-year-old pit bull, and he had cancer. We had to put him down earlier this year. We all had the flu, the pneumonia, and I was really laid up. Couldn't even go to the vet with him. Broke my heart. And so a couple weeks later, I'm still down recovering. And my wife goes, hey, babe, we'll be back later today. I'm taking the kids out. And I said, where are you guys going? And she goes, we're heading to Lansing for a little bit. And I'm like, Lansing? Like, so where I'm at in Michigan, that's 2.5 hours. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, there's these puppies. We're just looking. And I'm like, no, babe, don't do this. Don't do that. She's like, babe, we're not buying. It's fine. Honey, we're just looking. And this is what a sucker I am. I get a FaceTime. They're there at the breeders. And this is a true story. And she goes, hey, hun, if we were going to get one, which one would you want? So I'm looking at all these dogs and I'm like, well, I like the big one. No, I don't want a dog, babe. Do not, I see where this is headed. Don't bring home a dog. She's like, I'm not bringing home a dog. You can't take him home for another 3 weeks. And I'm like, honey, no, it gets so much worse. Not only did she buy one, but she did buy 2. So I really do have 2 Rottweiler puppies now. I have Bear and Tank. We're now a 3-dog family.
Oh my
And it's all because my kids are hoping they have their own rubble. And Melissa wants her own rubble. My dog is great. Like, they want one that's super loyal to them. So I got suckered so hard into that. And I've never had 3 dogs before. It's completely a whole new way of life.
Holy
3 dogs
bananas.
and 6 kids. I joke and say we're probably like 1 kid and a couple dogs away from having our own reality show at this point. So,
well, I was just going to say 6 kids, 3 dogs, 2 parents. You got to sell books to be able to keep this little habit going, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's get into a little bit more Out for Blood before we run out of time. I wanted to say that the opening scene was so deliciously solid. I mean, I always know that you have really found an exceptional writer when that opening scene, not the first paragraph, which is, maybe 4 paragraphs I'll give you. But when you got me going into the 2nd and 3rd page and I can't get there fast enough, I know I've landed on a decent book. So
thank you.
Kudos to that. And your sense of time and space, action, tension, just superb. And on top of it all, Matthew, just a cool dude. He's the kind of guy that you go, for readers who already have read your stuff, they're all going, yeah, Dave, yeah, welcome to the party. But for me, as a new fan, I go, man, that's the kind of guy you go, I want to know what makes him tick, what's coming up next, how long can I follow him? So just a mini applause here, dude.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So that I don't sit here and give something away like we're always guilty of doing. Oh, dude, don't say that. Whatever you do, don't say that, not that thing. So I'm going to let you give me the pitch for Out for Blood, and that way I can be safe.
Yeah, definitely. It's well, let me just speak on the opening real quick. So it's this is a winter book. It's the worst snowstorm in Montana history, basically. And Red finds himself in the middle of it, which is hard enough when you're a cattle rancher in Montana on your own. It's a lot harder when there's a whole kill team after you. And that's where he finds himself. But the opening, I was really proud of. So a couple of things. It was an Easter egg that no one could spot. But when I wrote the original draft of Fields of Fire, something like 8 years ago, it originally opened with, for those who don't know, winters in Montana can be deadly, but it wasn't the cold that was killing Matthew Red. I recycled that. I finally got to use it. Fields of Fire became a completely different book by the time it hit publication. I went through rewrites. I always wanted to come back and do a winter book. And so with Out for Blood, I liken this to like an Avengers type book. If you've read my first 2, everyone you've met along the way, they're here. They're back. It's one big battle to not only protect Wellington, Montana, Red's hometown, but Matthew Red. You meet him in Fields of Fire. He's this just Marine raider who came home looking for answers about what happened to his adopted father, who's a cattle rancher, lived a very quiet life. And he ends up unearthing a global conspiracy that only he can stop. He's changed a lot in these 3 books. He was a loner in book 1. Now he's married. He's got a family. Well, the problem is he's got more to lose, right? That was all challenge. Now he's got a family and people he loves. There's a bigger target on his back because they're being targeted as well. So where the book opens is Red's part of an FBI fly team to hunt down this cabal I call the 12. They now know that Red knows their identities. That's sort of not to give away book 2, but Red finds out a lot more about them in book 2. That changes things. He was sort of a nuisance before to them. Now he's a direct threat. Now they know that he has their information, which means they got to take him out. So they're not just looking to silence him now. They're out for blood. They're going to threaten him and everyone he loves. And it becomes a question of how far will Matthew Red go to protect everyone and everything he loves. So when he gets a call that he's got maybe an hour until there's a whole kill team at his front door, he's got to figure out I have absolutely like no preparations for this. So What do you do? And that was the fun part for me. That was the jump off point. He sends his family in one direction with people he knows can protect them. And he goes by himself with his horse Remington and his trusty 130-pound Rottweiler Rubble. And he heads up in the middle of a snowstorm into the mountains of Montana, hoping that he can use the land as an equalizer. And it just kind of all is downhill from there, or uphill, depending on how you look at it. It was intimidating to write, because I've never written anything this big. I knew if you've been a reader from the first 2 books, there was going to be an expectation. You probably saw where this one was going, and I really wanted to make sure I delivered that. And it was kind of hilarious because when I sat down to write it, I'm writing a winter book. Michigan got one of the worst snowstorms we've had in decades. And so I would just walk outside out of my porch and stand in like an actual blizzard and then go back inside and write it. So it was pretty... And my next book is a wildfire book, which the first day I went to write it, we got the smoke from Canada that came over the US, and I'm sitting outside, like taking it all in, like, okay. So, I'm really proud of this book. The reactions have been amazing. We got great quotes from Jack Carr and Brad Thor, literary heroes of mine. It's a revenge book for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's just flat out dynamite. And at 342 pages, which, by the way, call me crazy, call me an old man, but I think you shrunk the font by a notch to be able to get it at 342. Because I'm sitting there reading it, and I'm a couple of hours in. I'm like, I'm adjusting my glasses. I'm like, what? Am I getting old that fast? And then I pull out a few other books, and I go, oh, you shrunk the font a little bit. That's it.
I mean, it caught me off guard too. I mean, I think they got to keep printing costs down. It was a big book. I can tell, authors measure in word count. And this one came in very close to 130,000 words. Is the biggest thing. A normal thriller is 100,000 words. This had been the biggest thing. And then, now I'm writing the Alex Hawke books for the late Ted Bell. Yeah. And I did my first one called Ted Bell's Monarch, and that's over 130. That's closer to 140,000. So Out for Blood is no longer the biggest book I've written, but it's for sure the most action packed.
Now, how did you get past your agent and or publishers the fact of going 30 plus over if 100's about the average?
Yeah. The key is, here's the secret. You just don't ask. You just turn it in and it's over. And look, the rule in publishing is if it's going to be over 100,000 words, it better not feel like it.
Yeah.
So really what most writers do is you just play stupid. You're like, oh, I didn't realize it was a little over. You can't do that at 130,000, the great Tom Colgan at Penguin, when Monarch was running over, I called him and made sure it was okay. But I asked if I could turn in like at 120. He was like, it's totally fine. It's no big deal. And I definitely sent in at like 135 or 138. I give Tyndale a heads up too.
Yeah. Before we go to break, I wanted to say, and my memories of Ted Bell are as yours are as well. Just phenomenal. One of the nicest men that walk the planet. Giving, brilliant, classy. I got to know him really well, closer to the end. Unfortunately, too close because we were going to hook up and get together in Miami when I was going down to visit family. And then we got the news, and I was crushed. It took me weeks to get over that. And just what a legend. So kudos Memory to our good buddy Ted, and kudos to you for taking over in his stead.
Thank you. You know, that interview that you did with him, I went back to watch a lot before I was writing. I went back and watched every footage that we had of Ted. Everything I knew about the books, I'd worked with him for a long time behind the scenes. And I wanted to go and everything I thought I knew that he felt about Hawk in his series, I wanted to go watch every interview I could find. And so I watched not only his interview with you, but also the you put out a quick show after his passing, man. And that was really beautifully done. So kudos to you. And shout out to Ted's daughter, Birdie, who now runs the Ted Bell Estate. And I'm super, man, it's hard to put into words, you know, when they asked me to do it. And David, like I was so stupid when my agent called and said, you know, hey, Ryan, everyone wants you to be involved. I thought they meant like behind the scenes as an editor or something. Yeah. I had no idea they wanted me to write it.
Wow.
And so when he was like, no, we're talking like as the author, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, and it was a lot to get my head around. When Ted meant a lot to me, that when I got the news that he had passed, I locked myself in my office. I cried I don't even think I've cried that hard since I was a child, man. Yeah. I wept for hours. And it was heavy, you know, when I started Monarch. I'll tell you what, man, when I was doing fine in the opening and everything, but I got to my first Hawk chapter and I typed that first quotation mark and I was about to write dialogue for Alex Hawk. And it really hit me. Like I had to stop. I was very overcome with emotion because I realized no one but Ted has ever given this guy a voice. Yeah. And it was heavy for me, and I got up, walked around, came back, and tore into it. And I'm really, really pleased to say that Birdie, obviously Ted's fantastic daughter, really good friend of mine now, was the first reader, and she gave me her stamp of approval, and that meant a lot. So that one comes out March 25 of next year, and I'm excited.
Nice. Well, first of all, hi Birdie, we love you, we miss you, Dad.
Yeah.
Kudos again to you, because I can't wait to read that, because Ted was such an inspiration. Speaking of some inside secrets here with Ryan, we're going to take a short break, let our sponsor do some talking. But when we come back, he's going to share some of the secrets, his secrets, time honored in the world of social media. And we're going to find out his best writing advice. It's Ryan Steck, Out for Blood, right here on the Thriller Zone. Stay with us. And welcome back to the Thriller Zone. I'm David Temple. This is Ryan Steck. We're Out for Blood. And boy, I'll tell you, Ryan, you've hit it out of the ballpark with this puppy. Only number 3 now.
Yeah, thank you.
How does that feel? I mean, to have, all right, let's step back a second. First of all, Real Book Spy, you've been around for, what'd you say, a birthday's coming up on 10.
Yeah.
You're well respected in the community. Everyone loves you. I'm a big fan. First time we've really got a chance to meet. And I'm so impressed with your work ethic and your tenacity and your integrity. And I know that you got some inside secrets because I've been watching you on all the social media. And I'm like, and I was asking myself as I was writing notes over the weekend, I'm like, find out from Ryan what that secret sauce is. And not the writing advice. We're going to get that in a second. But the way that you're able to lift the Real Book Spy and your books and other authors and serve this whacked out world of social media simultaneously and be so successful at it.
I mean, I wish I knew. Yeah, I wish. Look, secrets I'm good at. My favorite thing is my favorite writers that are now friends is to call them and scoop them and tell them, you know, I'll just casually mention the title of their book or something and just see what they say. Yeah. Or mention things, you know, and every time people are like, I can't believe you know that. And I'm like, I'd be a pretty terrible book spy if I didn't. Right. Social media has changed so much since I started.
Yeah.
You know, we went from Twitter to X or whatever Elon's calling it now. Like it's a totally different thing. I never see anything I want to on it. Like I'll say, like many people, it's all, I honestly think all the crap I see is exactly the things I never want to see on social media.
Yeah.
Like, do whatever your algorithm is, just reverse it, and we're probably good. But I do think it's a powerful tool when it comes to finding people who are like-minded. It's becoming harder to reach those people, I think. And I was probably fortunate enough to get a bit of an audience before things changed a lot.
Yeah.
But I do think, look, and this is true for men, like for male readers, like, look, let's be honest. Okay, if you weren't doing the show, and I'm not the book spy, and none of this exists. You read a book you really love, what do you do? Who do you tell about it?
You tell your friends.
Yeah, but I don't think we do that as often as we probably should. I think most men are pretty terrible. I'll bring up a book to like a guy friend or even my dad. He'll be like, oh yeah, I love that one. And I'm like, oh, you read it? Yeah, it was really good. That's it. That was the whole discussion. Unless you start like prying and you're trying to create a discussion around it, very rarely do I think men are going around telling each other about books and all that. Then you turn on Book Talk and it's like women have nailed this.
I was going to say, here's the thing, and I'm going to interrupt you because I talk to my guy friends. Hey, did you read so-and-so? We're going to use a number of 30 guy friends.
Yeah.
28 of them don't read. I'm like, what? What do you do in your spare time? Well, I've got the kids or this or that. But I ask 30 of gal friends, 31 of them have read the book.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're way better at it than us when it comes to networking and talking about books that they love. That's why Book Talk really exploded. And so what I have found is there are definitely, look, on both sides of that aisle, men, women that love these types of books. But I just think guys are more likely to hop on like Twitter or some guy. Yeah, I don't understand Instagram or TikTok whatsoever at all. Shout out David Brown for being the first anyone in the thriller world to get on TikTok and do something with that. David Brown, the wizard of Atrium Mystery Bus.
Didn't he just do something the other day where he's sitting in his, it's William Kent Kruger sitting in his office pretending to be.
Yeah, now, man, he's got guest lineups. Brad Thor had a great one that they did. Jack Carr's got a new one. Like, if you aren't following Atrium Mystery Bus on TikTok, you should be, because it's the same flavor, but like a totally different package than what you would see on, Twitter or X. Now, I think social media is a tough nut to crack. I really do. Everyone is trying to replicate other people. And if I have any advice to people, it would just be, don't do that. Don't look at what made someone else successful at what they're doing. Don't necessarily try to be them, be you, because you're probably never going to match what they're already doing.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'm going to pull from that audience that you're probably thinking, and you may or may not know this gal. You have to know, because if you're breathing today, you're going to know Colleen Hoover.
Colleen Hoover, yeah.
Didn't she kind of ignite the fire of Book Talk?
My understanding is that is true, and that book sold like many millions of copies.
Yeah.
Like way after it originally had come out.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong, but I think it all started with like someone read her book and had such a reaction to it. They were crying, and they got on TikTok and they posted a video of them like crying, and that just took off. And so anyway, if it doesn't work, I'm going to rebrand and I'm going to write the saddest book anyone's ever read in their lives. And we're going to have an army of Thriller fans just sobbing on TikTok, and we'll see what happens. But I do think it's wild. We're all trying to find, you see with every author right now, Jack Carr's cracked the code. But the issue is so many writers get in the game today and they're like, oh, I'm going to do what Jack's doing. You will never out Jack Carr when it comes to being Jack Carr.
Not going to happen.
Never going to happen.
Well, it does help the fact that he has several movies, TV shows, an entire shopping network at his beck and call on his website, and he turns around every single time. And if it's not cross tomahawk cutting boards, it's knives or cocktail glasses. I mean, he's just turned into a phenom.
No one can do what he's doing.
No,
nobody. And if you tried, it wouldn't be the same. You'd be Jack Carr light, and no one wants that. We want the real Jack Carr. So everyone's got to find their own footing, I think. And this is by far, no one talks about this enough, but just in the spirit of honesty, this is the hardest time I think it's ever been for thriller novelists since Clancy sort of redefined the genre.
Yeah.
It is so much harder today to find an audience, to gain a readership, to get your start than it ever has been. You go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, Vince Flynn, Daniel Silva, Lee Child, Brad Thor, Josie Rosenberg, Kyle Mills. All these guys were just starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Connolly's. They're all still here today.
Yeah.
That next wave, Brad Taylor, Mark Graney. It's getting pretty short after that list, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, next wave, it's like Jack Carr. It's getting harder and harder and harder now to continue trying to break out or really gain footing in this genre in the industry today.
So, but let's look at Ryan Steck for a second. You don't let that describe your future. You don't sit there and look at that and go, oh, this is too daunting for me, because you're writing out of passion. I sense.
I think you just have to ignore that because, and listen, I mean, this whole interview is now selling Jack Carr because he needs the help, for his sales. No, he doesn't. Oh man, he's crushing it. He definitely is. But no, I mean, listen, Jack always says, never tell me the odds. Someone did it before me. And that was his attitude as a Navy SEAL. That was his attitude as a novelist. And I think that that's very true. I'm blessed because I talk to famous, wealthy, established, successful authors all the time. So you're like, it could happen. It would be the most daunting thing in the world if you're brand new to the industry and you're coming in and this has been your dream. I don't know how you start that today necessarily.
Well, you got to have a nest egg. You got to have a team behind you, and you got to have a tenacious spirit unlike any other. And by the way, I know Jack's on the top of your book, but we really don't have to make this the Jack Carr special.
I mean, it is. It's been the Jack Carr show. It's all good, man, because I love Jack Carr. And let me tell you what, his readers are everywhere. So I had on one of the Jack Carr mod watches, the Aries, he's got branding with everybody now. I had one of those on, and I was with my wife. In the acknowledgments I mentioned, I don't go into too much details. My wife had very serious health issues when I was in edits for Out for Blood, writing Red Fort, and it tested me a lot in ways I never expected. And you're down. We were at U of M Med. It's hard. You're just trying to stay focused on, what you're doing one day at a time. And I'll never forget, the doctor looked and saw the watch. It had the Jack Carr logo. And he was like, "Hey, do you read Jack Carr?" And it was like, yeah. And it brought me back into the world that I'm in every day. And I really mean this, David. It took the scary out of the situation. Nice. We were at this incredibly important doctor's appointment. And I'm over here talking about Jack Carr. Yeah. And the guy's like, "Yeah, I love his books." And I'm like, and of course my wife's like, "Yeah, Ryan knows them. They're friends." And he's like, "No way." And I'm like, this guy went to school for 18 years to specialize in his field. And he's geeking out over Jack Carr. And he loves the books. He loves the show. Didn't know there was, the watches. He's got to get a watch and this and that. And Jack is such a stud. He'd probably be mad I'm saying this, but I text Jack and I tell him all that. And he's like, "Get the doctor's name and I want to send him a signed book."
Wow.
That's the real Jack Carr, man. Yeah. That's why he's so successful, because the guy is very sincere. That's the truth.
He is. And you know what? It would be fun. When I was watching you and Bryn and he on that Twitch, I thought, man, how much fun would it be, the three of us? That would be a hoot and a half. All right, as we get to wrap, because I told you we'd be out soon enough because you got your hands full, and I do want to finish with your best writing advice, because for a guy who has been at it for only 3 books, but it feels like 6 or 10, I know you've come up with, and I know you've heard this on the show before, and a lot of people go, "Oh, Dave's closing with the same thing." Well, yeah, because it's the one thing everyone really likes. I like that signature saying. So what is that? If you've bound to have distilled it down to something. If you're teaching it at a class, etc., you got the tee up. What do you think?
Right. Everyone says, right, what you know. And I think that's not true, man. My series is set in Montana, and it's about a guy who's a former Marine Raider, now turned cattle rancher. I am the most city boy you'll ever meet in your life. If I had to go to Montana in the middle of a snowstorm, I'm dead for sure. By nightfall, I'm dead. Promise you, I'm never making it. I didn't know anything. I'm writing the Alex Hawke books. I pitched Tom Colgan an opening for that, and he goes, "It sounds great." And I freaked out because I was like, I don't even know where to start. I had to go do 2 weeks of research and talk to so many people to get my head around it before I could even start writing that. Write what you know used to work, I think. Now, I think it's so competitive. It's so hard to get into this business. Write what you want to read and write what you're passionate about. Because if you want to be a writer, it's going to require a lot of passion. It's going to require the never tell me the odds attitude that we've talked about with Jack Carr, because he needs another shout out because he didn't have enough. No, but seriously, man, you got to steel yourself for, this is not a get rich quick scheme, or let me just write a book like so-and-so. That's not how this works. It's not how publishers work. It's not how agents work. So you got to write something because it's so part of you. You've got to get it out. And if it gets published, hey, even better, right? I wrote Fields of Fire. That was my first book, knowing it may never get published, but it was so inside of me. I had to put it on the page and see what it looked like. I felt like I owed myself that. I owed the characters in the universe that. And now you just keep going. I think so. Write what you're passionate about, because you're going to need it. You're going to need it. And then write what you want to read.
I want to go back one quick second, because you wrote that first book because you said it had to get out of you. Were you sitting there and staring at this? Were you looking at the fork in the road that said, do I self-publish because this was a passion and I'm just going to get it out there regardless, which is kind of how I did my first handful of books? Or did I take the right fork and go, I'm going to save this and go querying agents until the cows come home, and not settle until I find one?
I mean, I had an unfair advantage being a book spy. And I've worked as a freelance editor for a long time. So I had a lot of connections and relationships with agents. And I think I have the best agent in publishing, John Talbot. I absolutely trust him with my whole career. And when I wrote Fields of Fire, originally, Matthew Redd was 33. He was CIA, not a Marine Raider. He was coming back to Montana and found a human trafficking ring. And John, I remember, was smart enough to go, like, that's not going to work. It's a good book. No one wants to read that. I want you to rewrite it. Hey, just take the trafficking out. Like, that made it sound not scary. Just take that out. And I was like, okay. And then the editor inside of me kicked in and I was like, well, you can't just take that out. Like there's a ripple effect, right? That's the whole plot. So now it's a rewrite. Now it's a labor of love. So to me, it was never like, I'll just self-publish or this or that. It was, all right, let me take my best swing at this thing. And if I strike out, that's okay. But I'm going to get up there and swing. And I'm going to swing for the fences on this one. I listened to my agent. You got to do that. It's never quick. Your agent gives you advice. It's not like, give me a day and I'll turn it back into you. I mean, we're talking 18 months later, I'm still trying to figure out how to do this. You got to look big picture, I think. Yeah. And I had the unfair advantage compared to a lot of new writers because I was already in the industry in a very weird and unique way with a lot of different roles, editor and book spy and biggest fan, and it kind of came together for me. But that was my mindset of I'm going to take the biggest swing I can. And if I connect, great. And if I don't, that's okay too. I still love what I do. I still love editing. I still love book spying. So I felt like, if it works out, it works out. And now I kind of look back and I laugh because if I knew how great it was to be an author, I'd have been more stressed out back then. I would have been like, this has to work, but it is great. Like, it's really great. I absolutely love it. I've been blessed. People are reading my books. That's so wild to me, man. These books live in your head. These characters are with you all the time. And I just did a PLA event in Ohio last month. And to get to meet readers and stuff like in person and to hear from them, that is so, so amazing. Like, that is so cool. And so, if I would have known how great it is, I would have been more stressed out. But I went into it, pretty blind and thought I knew because I worked with authors and I was friends with them. And I had a different mindset with it. But, I got really fortunate for sure.
Well, again, Out for Blood is the book. If you want to learn more, go to the website, ryansteck.com. Yeah. And Ryan, thank you so much. I'm so glad we finally got this together, and I'm hoping I'm cheering you for the next book and for the Ted Bell series. Just
thank you, man.
Huge congrats.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of the show. Like, keep it up because I love what you're doing. I really, really do. I support you all the way. I've seen a lot of people come along since I've been a book spy. A lot of websites that are like book spy ripoffs. And it's hard for me to support those because I'm like, they literally copy everything I do, like the wording of things. And I love when there's people that come around and they're original, like what you're doing. Like, I'm a big fan of that, man. So really support what you got going on and love the interviews you do. And not only do you have the best voice, but you ask the best questions too. I really mean that. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, humbled. Thank you. All right. You get out. You take care. And please let me know the next chance we get to sit down for book 4, because it's going to be a doozy. Yeah. What I'd really like to do is sit down face to face. As you know, we've been trying to slide into that more and more lately, and they've become, it's such a different, palpable thing when you get to sit down and just really chew the fat in front of each other.
I totally agree, man. I'd be up. We'll make something work for sure.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, man.
Thanks again, Ryan. Now, folks, you may have heard me talking about it on social media like all week, but next Monday, I'm thrilled to announce I'll be sitting down for a 3-peat performance with none other than the lovely, talented, smart, and funny New York Times bestselling author, Meg Gardner. Oh, baby, it promises to be loads of fun, as always. Now, before I go, a quick reminder. This is our anniversary month, and on the following week, June 17th to be exact, I'm going to let you in on a closely held secret. Recall my very first guest? The person who took a chance talking to a then yet mostly unknown podcast host of a little startup pod called The Thriller Zone? If not, it was May Cobb. Well, she's promised to return to celebrate our 3-year anniversary as we discuss her latest thriller, The Hollywood Assistant. So go ahead and add Meg Gardner's book, Shadow Heart, and May Cobb's Hollywood Assistant to your summer reading list, as you'll want to devour both of them. All right, I'm David Temple, your host, and I'll see you next time for another exciting edition of The Thriller Zone, your front row seat to the best thriller writers in the world.